It is the place of Gethsemane. It is the place of Jesus's greatest sorrow, greatest surrender. We're going to get into hands-on, what did Jesus's secret place look like? The first thing that Jesus does is he yields. He yields unto the Father. Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. When I yield unto God's leadership, sometimes it's not comfortable. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes I'm crying like, Lord, I don't want to do that. God, I don't want to let go of that. I don't want to give that up. But then he sends his Holy Spirit. He sends an angel. I don't know what's going on in the supernatural realm, but truly he girds up my loins. He fills me with strength like, wait, no, I can do this. The second thing I wrote down here is crushing. Now, there are seasons of crushing. We talked about this in the trials episode. And the crushing has a negative connotation, but what I've learned now, having some history with God, I'm still very young, but in growing with him and doing hard things, is in the crushing, an oil is produced, a fragrance is produced, a connection with Jesus is produced that could not be produced elsewhere. And suddenly, I actually find joy in the crushing. And listen, as hard as this may be to hear, this is the gospel. Jesus's goal, God's goal, the Holy Spirit's goal is to crush you. Not out of anger, not out of hatred. It's to get rid of every part of you that doesn't look like the Son. Why? Because in him is life. So anything that is in you that is not him is death. And so those things need to be crushed. And unfortunately, we're human, we hold on to things, which makes the crushing even harder at times. But even Jesus had to be crushed. I mean, he's in agony. He's praying more earnestly, like, Lord, please take this if it be your will. And then he's sweating drops of blood, the anxiety, the overwhelming emotion of knowing I am not in control. God's will is that I may suffer. And this is the hardest part about Christianity. I think in our day and age, we don't parallel suffering with glory. When if we look at our second Adam, if we look at our forerunner, Jesus, the forerunner of our faith, how did he come into glory? By suffering, by crushing. But again, you cannot, how do I say this? New oil, new wine cannot be produced in you without crushing, just like they crush the olives, just like they crush the grapes. Gethsemane was actually a place where they would crush olives. It was on the Mount of Olives, right? And so there's this parallel between Jesus, what he's doing, and what historically happened there. But crushing is a part of Jesus's plan, and it's something that you should expect when you yield, because sometimes you're going to yield your desires and your will, and you're not going to like the outcome. You're not going to like what God decides. But in the crushing, I'm telling you guys, I went through a crushing 2 years ago, and it's like people around me have literally even said, wow, Taylor, you're different. And I didn't even maybe realize. But the crushing produced such beauty and a greater depth of Jesus, because when you're crushed, when you yield and he takes something away, you have to learn how to be more satisfied with him. See, crushing is oftentimes removing things that we built our foundation on. And sometimes our house begins to teeter. And we're like, well, what's going on? And that's painful because God's having to rebuild some stuff in us. So I just wrote, he crushes the old to make room for the new. We let go of control here in this stage, and that feels very scary. And I want to point out real quick something. When he went to the disciples sleeping in verse 45, why do you sleep? Rise and pray lest you enter into temptation. The disciples were susceptible to temptation. Why? Because while Jesus is not giving into temptation. Remember the temptation, imagine how much he's getting tempted right now. Don't go through with God's plan. Glorify yourself. You don't have to do this. Who cares about humanity? You don't have to die. That's the temptation that Jesus is hearing. The anxiety, he's probably getting visions of how it's going to feel, all the lashings he's going to take, the painful death he's going to have, how it's going to hurt his friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet because he's in the place of secret, he's not falling into temptation. He's yielding and he's allowing God to crush. Because the enemy never crushes you. Well, initially. He always wants to lift you up, but God is always bringing you down because there is greater glory in the lowly places than in the higher places. Right? And so Jesus is like, you guys are going to fall into temptation. Why? Because you're not praying. Because you don't have a secret life. And many of you out there struggle with sin. You have secret sin. You're not having, you're not conquering that thing because you don't have a secret life with Jesus. I'm telling you, it's right here. Then he said to them, why do you sleep? Rise and pray lest you enter into temptation. Lest you enter into temptation. So prayer helps us to overcome temptation. The lack of prayer helps us to give into temptation. Okay, so this is why we need the secret place. Secret place, man. So good.